In ancient Greek myth, there was a king named Sisyphus. He deceived the gods, he cheated death. He believed himself clever enough to outwit fate. For this, the story says, he was condemned to a singular punishment to push a massive stone up a mountain. Each time he neared the summit, the stone slipped from his hands and rolled back down. He would descend, lift it again, and begin again. No completion, no redemption, only repetition. For centuries, this image has symbolized futility, human effort against indifferent gravity. In The House of the Dead, his account of a Siberian penal colony in the 1850s, Fyodor Dostoevsky imagines the most terrifying punishment one could devise. Not torture, not death, labor stripped of purpose, work with no usefulness, no end. He suggests that if one wishes to invent a punishment so dreadful that even the most savage murderer would fear it, one would assign him to meaningless work, exertion emptied of significance. That, he implies, would crush human being completely. Seen through that lens, Sisyphus is not merely tired. He is sentenced to insignificance. And yet, centuries later, Albert Camus refuses to leave him there. In the myth of Sisyphus, he proposes something defiant. We must image Sisyphus happy, not because the task changes, not because the mountain softens, but because consciousness changes. The gods control the rock, they control gravity, but they do not control his awareness. If he becomes lucid, clear eyed about his condition, something shifts. The rock still falls, but he walks back down awake. There's dignity in that, and perhaps more than dignity. Marcel Proust once suggested that suffering had made him who he was, that difficulty, not comfort, deepened his inner life. If that is so, then the stone does not only push Sisyphus, it forms him. The repetition shapes him, the resistance strengthens him, the mountain carves him. The very thing meant to erase him becomes the condition through which he becomes himself. The stone makes Sisyphus Sisyphus. Work, then, is not always a curse. There are seasons when it steadies us, when grief threatens to dissolve structure, when uncertainty presses inward. Work can hold the day together. It creates rhythm. It gives the nervous system something to do. Repetition can contain what would otherwise scatter. The stone, at times, is scaffolding. Meaning is not always in outcome. Sometimes it is in continuity. But mountains are not only resistance, they are also seduction. The summit draws the eye long before the legs begin to burn. Height promises perspective, distance promises clarity. Mountains have rarely been mere geology. Across cultures, the divine has been placed at altitude. In ancient Greece, the gods dwelled on Mount Olympus. In the Andes, high peaks were revered as living presences. What stands above appears to govern what lays below. And from mountains comes water. Rivers begin there. Snow gathers there. Life descends from height. Height becomes origin. Origin becomes authority. To ascend has never meant only to climb. It has meant to approach what sustains and what judges. Language itself conspires with ascend. We speak of the moral high ground, of rising above, lofty ideas. Altitude smuggles in nobility. The climb is not merely to move upward, it is to appear elevated. The higher you go, the wider the horizon becomes. The world arranges itself into proportion. You feel smaller and sometimes pure, and there is beauty there, and beauty alters judgment. Altitude, the air thins, oxygen decreases. Calm can arrive not as strength, but as subtle depletion. You can feel expansive while your reserves quietly diminish. There is another ancient warning about height, not punishment, but intoxication. Icarus did not fall because he was condemned. He fell because he was dazzled. The mountain does not only resist us, it invites us, it flatters us. Sisyphus climbs because he must. Modern climbers climb because they want to. Punishment was repetition without meaning. Seduction is ascent wrapped in meaning, sometimes too much of it. 10 years in life feel like that. Not crushing, panoramic, expansive. Everything opens, possibilities multiply. You feel lifted rather than burdened. And yet the danger is not futility. The danger is drift, the self deception. You stay too long at altitude, you mistake suspension for integration, all for arrival, elevation for virtue. I once felt this physically. After skiing down from nearly 3,000 meters, breath short, legs feeling like spaghetti al dente, I stopped to recover. Coming toward me was an older man climbing upward. He looked as if he had stepped straight out of an orange juice advertisement. Radiant, light, impossibly fresh. I asked him, how is it possible? How could I be exhausted going down while he seemed renewed going up? He laughed. I started at 4 in the morning. He had been moving for nearly 12 hours, not intensely, continuously. And something became clear. The uphill climbers are modern Sisyphus figures, except they choose the mountain. They carry no stone but their own weight. They return to incline and gravity voluntarily, not condemned, compelled, but by desire. Push, step, breath, repeat. The difference is not the slope, it is the stance. Perhaps the mountain is what Donald Winnicott would call transitional space. Not self, not other, but something in between. Solid enough to resist us, stable enough to receive our projections. We bring ambition to it, fear to it, longing to it. In climb and descending, we reorganize ourselves. The mountain doesn't change much. We do. Rock will always fall, gravity will always remain, the air will always thin. The question is not whether there is a mountain. There is. When George Mallory was asked why he wanted to climb Mount Everest, he answered, because it's there. It may be the worst answer ever given. It may be the best. Worst, because it refuses justification. It offers no moral high ground, no noble narrative, no socially acceptable reason. Best, because it's honest, because it does not disguise resistance as virtue or seduction as destiny. It names the encounter without decorating it. It holds both truths at once. The mountain resists, the mountain seduces, humbles, it flatters, it stands, it rises. Something in us responds, sometimes because we must, sometimes because we're drawn. The air thins, the horizon widens, the stone falls, and still we move. Not to conquer the mountain, not to dissolve into it, but to remain wake in its presence, because it's there and because we are here.